an advanced era of human potential. Has the time come for the human species to wonder about the advanced humanity? As a human being, part of the human species, just as I care for my individual consciousness, its sense of past, its journey from the past to the present, and then from the present to the future, the species is the collective self of the individual. Therefore, to care about the future of the species is as natural as caring about the future of an individual. I have thought about this idea in so many different moments. It's as if sometimes when I look at my videos, it's as if I see my past selves attempting to solve a puzzle. And the puzzle is, how do we get 8 billion creatures on a rock in the middle of nowhere to build the most advanced thing possible? This is a problem that every human being it's a puzzle that every human being should attempt to solve. In my talks, I talk about the songs of an advanced civilization. That is when minds, when inner lives of people begin suddenly, through the strength of the idea that is the advanced civilization, communicating. That means everybody's going to be talking about the advanced civilization. You know, I'm just getting the ball rolling. Now, this idea of the advanced humanity, technically, let's structure the problem and say, how do we get from like an inefficient, every man for himself sort of bewildered creature mindset towards an advanced civility, something so advanced that its result is so advanced that we as human beings, the moment we get there, we wonder, how could we have never thought of this? Like, I don't know how to say it, but it's as if like when you see something better, then you have this feeling like, man, this thing could have been here even earlier. Now, in this episode, the viewers need to know 2 things, I guess, about me. One, my major work, I would say what I feel is like my being, my spirit's direction, I don't know how to say it, but is this idea of civilization too, which I'm writing a book on. So that's one thing where in this talk you might hear me talk about civilization 2.0. And then there is all the other ways I have just fathomed reality could potentially go forth. So how do we start towards an advanced humanity? One thing I notice is that human beings are creatures that the moment they declare something, it's as if, this might be a ridiculous metaphor, but just like how wolves like piss their territory or something, you know, human declaration of, okay, I'll give a better example, just like how a lion roars and then suddenly every creature in the environment suddenly gets a sense of like what sort of intensity is out there. Similarly, when a human being declares something, they are roaring something, or they are claiming inner territory. That means it's inner vision oriented. The idea is that if we can figure out what the options, or what are the options, or what is accessible to the individual, then it becomes, more of a clear route to be like, okay, then it's like, well, first we see how capable the individual is, then we see how capable all individuals are, then we see what kind of vision or strategy or structure or system do we need to, in some sense, begin walking towards the advanced civilization and the advanced humanity. The idea of an advanced civilization and advanced humanity, and the idea of the advanced communicators, which I will go on to explain more deeply. The idea is that right now in 2022, we don't have an advanced civilization. I mean, compared to the past, sure, but compared to the future, we don't have an advanced civilization. Any person can look at their past and feel victorious, but it is really the future, the endless future, where the true victory is. So any human being can close their eyes and fathom that eventually, okay, so two options, either the species goes extinct or the species advances. It's like literally a coin flip. Now, the species will advance. The issue is that how can we fathom it from this moment in time? Let me see how I can say this. It's like behind our eyes, through the inner visual permission that imagination is. And through the coughs in the trenches of civilization 1.0. Sorry guys, just a second. The idea is I'll organize what I'm trying to communicate like this. We look at where we are, okay, and we see that in 2022 we find ourselves at a time where the species is midway transit from a purely natural dimension to artificial dimensions, right? If a human being wanted to think about the evolution of a biological creature, the more this creature became conscious, the more it began becoming involved in new dimensions of experience of existence. It's as if, to me, you can say language is a sort of artificial, language is like the first artificial world that a natural conscious creature entered. Now, for example, from Marshall McLuhan's perspective, like print, like newspapers and print, was in some sense the next simulation we entered. So it was you can say like inner linguistic modes, and then it became writing, right? It's like at some point in the evolution of the psychology of a creature, language became so important for it that it began restructuring its whole life based on it. Like, how remarkable is that? You see dolphins leap out of the water, and simple people clap, yay, and then you see, for example, the human being forget its natural being and just become like a character in a story, and then the story repeating, and then the human being like, how do I get out of the suffering of my own self-simulation? we're at the transit point right now. You know, we're transiting from a purely natural, objective creature into maybe, let's say, 50% a natural organism, and right now 50% a subjective organism. Now the hilarious thing of the addition of technology in cyberspace is that cyberspace has to take some part of attention from either nature or from the mind. You know, the cost of existence is the attention that holds it. For me, I noticed that when you look at the ideological systems, all the religions, every modern religion, or what else is there? Like, all ideological systems on this planet, they're either based on the past, right, or they are based on the present, right? This is what we find. Right, human beings have made the future so far away that they don't care about it more than like their grandkids, like I'm pretty sure like grandfathers, like, they don't care that much for their grandkids, right? And that has been the issue. You see, the ego selfishness is meaningless when it's all meaning is originating from the void. To truly have human beings become advanced, they have to have an advanced acknowledgement of life. And what is life? It is all the dimensions we find in it. So most ideological systems based on past or based on present. In the present, the ideological systems usually become direct experience based. So if a person was like, okay, what kind of ideas are like, let's say, directing people's lives, like any person who's religious, you're worshiping the past. That's just it. You're worshiping the past. Any person who, let's say, how can I tell you, if you're an artist or whatnot, right? Or I don't know, I'm trying to think of like what archetype. Any person who's not like, their meaning comes from the games of life that they extract or project in the present. you know, After a person has walked through ideological systems based on the past, after the person has accepted the present and their presence, the future remains. The future is valuing the human being based on its potential, you know. Imagine in the future there were time machines and then nobody ever felt guilty on the planet. They could just go back in time and walk into a different parallel universe. Oh man. Life is so interesting, guys. It gives you visions of the future, but behind your eyes. You know, it's as if, like, when I wonder about what is the purpose of the human mind, it is simply to actualize what is within, right? It's as if the potential of the future is technically the potential that is within us. On some level, to bring forth and advance humanity, it's not like everybody's gonna be cloned into one idea of what advancement means. Technically, it's like it would be as if imagine a civilization, right, that has the etiquette or at least the minimum required etiquette or ethics of a beehive. Okay. And in a beehive, the bees don't care. They're just like, let's build this honey for the higher dimensions here. So if we were to somehow envision, like whoever you're listening to me, this is how I saw it in my inner realms. Pretty much the civilization's mindset on what the human being changes to this consideration that we are multidimensional. If in our past we have been defined by a singular dimension and by the dual, right? Language is a dualistic system because the way the cosmos sets us in motion is very dualistic. On some level, this is my theory, that all of human psychology can be reduced. You know, all of evolutionary psychology can be reduced to what I call the on and off switch effect, right? Which is pretty much the presence of light, the absence of light, darkness. Literally, it has been a sort of back and forth between there was light on the planet, the creature could see, could engage, and then there was darkness. And the body had to adapt to this. And because the body had to adapt to this, we've become a sort of rhythmic creature. In an advanced civilization, there will be technically no violence. Why? Because the species doesn't have time for its inefficiency. Human beings, I think more than food and water, they actually, a reason for their major reason for their survival is to access the new. It's like the body consumes food, or the body requires food, and then the mind requires novelty. And that means if the mind doesn't feel a freedom to see itself again in a new way, it feels shackled. It's pretty much the multidimensional acknowledgement of the human being in civilization means that the civilization has to acknowledge that there's many dimensions to every human being. So to judge a human being becomes a very multidimensional thing rather than being like, okay, this person is this or that, right? Rather than a dualistic framework of like, let's say, the outline of behavior. Multidimensionalism means that a person has a choice to, in some sense, stay in a dualistic realm of chaos and order, or they can choose to go to a new space and see something else. Right? Because the freedom of the body and the freedom of the mind are completely different things. The freedom of the body is, in some sense, when energy is balanced. That means technically death is like how the universe is rebalancing itself, you know. An advanced humanity just prioritizes efficiency, a multidimensional efficiency over like a singular defined inefficiency. you know, it's really like, why has the great gathering of minds happened? Why has the great gathering of inner realms happened? Why is our attention holding the world as the world's holding it? The future is just going to be, the honor of skill. The species transcends the ignorance of violence. In an advanced civilization, violence would be pushed in cyberspace. Biological bodies no longer need to, be disturbed unless the person has their own choice. But in some sense, to build an advanced civilization, it's as if we have to create imagine an advanced civilization is not the Tower of Babylon. But the advanced civilization is an effort to not conquer the gods, but to conquer the sky. An advanced civilization is more fascinated by its future than its past. And it's more fascinated by, its presence opinion. Right? A lot of people go into this oneness state and they're like, Mr.Within, it's all just the presence of one moment being, why are you trying to build an advanced civilization? And the idea is that because I can see one, because in my inner realms I can see that, imagine we just fast forward 200, 400 years. Hopefully by then we have jetpacks. Can you imagine every human being incredibly athletic because they need to, there's no longer gonna be streets. Imagine cars and everything, transport, collective transport becomes everything goes into the sky. It's as if before we build a sky city, we're like, okay, let's get a flying car first. Or at least, dear God, a flying skateboard or something, If right now I had a hoverboard, I'd 100% just be sitting on it and giving a talk, Sitting cross-legged on a hoverboard, It's like, what are your hobbies? Meditating on hoverboards. But anyways. What I'm trying to say is that in the future, there's going to be jetpacks. I had a dream of this. I didn't have the jetpack, but in the dream, I was jumping from one building to another, but it wasn't like the movie Matrix. It was so slow. It was as if I would jump from how would I tell you? It was kind of like I was floating, in the dream. But then I wondered, okay, civilization, I could totally see, imagine civilization somehow managed to, I don't know, speed up trees. We found a way that trees could grow, very quickly, okay? And imagine the greatest scientists had found a way that we could make, a giant sequoia tree even bigger. Imagine there's giant trees everywhere, and the species is jetpacking throughout the day, And the jetpacks are not based on fire. They're not based on fuel. They're based on sound or something that doesn't burn your feet, There will be an incredible geometrical revolution. That means human beings, the children of the future generations, they're just going to become incredible designers. Incredible. Design is like how consciousness engages technology. That means if we see an advanced civilization as like a very advanced vehicle advanced technology, then it's like we have also the user of the advanced technology. It's as if not only we need to build an advanced civilization, but human beings need to be advanced. You know, imagine we build an advanced civilization and we don't know how to use it. Nobody knows how to be advanced in it. That would be such a ridiculous thing. By the way, guys, a comment on, I don't know who drew this. I found this on a random website. I posted the link of the website, but the website has a random button, and I don't know, but this picture is incredible. Batman is just like, where's my phone? I gotta call somebody. You know what it is, guys? It's as if like Vegeta's gonna attack Superman, and Goku's waiting to like destroy Batman. Oh my god. Anyways, back to the advanced humanity. In the future, hopefully, there'll be, technology that could regenerate, let's say a person's health. But the whole idea is that we're gonna be the users of this technology that is civilization. It's as if we have to be capable excuse me. I'll repeat, we have to be capable internally to be able to even not only see that it's possible that every human being alive right now, your advanced self, imagine it is watching you from a timeless dimension, waiting for you to engage time with the honor of like an infinite potential. You know? An advanced civilization literally is like the greatest performance of a species. And everybody who constitutes that species, every creature, being, human being, it's as if every human being, in some sense, their choices pilot everyone. I don't know who said this quote, but somebody said, time travelers come from the future to the past to have somebody change a single event. The time traveler in like your usual stories of time travel, the time traveler goes in the past and it's like, don't do that, or like they try to change the fate of the future by having the person just change something simple from the past. Sorry, guys, there was an interruption. I was just thinking that, this picture, this photo for this episode is a very good example of, like, what happens when you open your chakras. I may be a bit exhausted, too exhausted for this episode, but I guess I'll let it flow on for now. Honestly, everything starts with a vision. Human beings have their beliefs. Somebody could tell me, I believe this, I believe that, but I'll be like, okay, what after? What happens after your belief? The beautiful thing about this world is that regardless of what belief we have of it, it changes. And because the world changes and because our identity comes from the experience of the world, technically we are changing. And it's another way of saying, sure, somebody can try to believe in an ideological system, but at the end of all ideological analysis, there's an emotional analysis. It's hilarious. I'm telling you, if somebody gave you all of truth, like imagine somebody found a notebook and the notebook was titled All of Truth, okay? And they gave you this notebook and you read it and you read, you knew everything. It's as if you'd reach a point where you'd be like, what now? What is the perception of the truth, the mighty truth attained? Honestly, this is the bizarre thing about life, that the moment there is duality, there is a paradoxical journey. There's paradoxical moments for the conscious journey. Right now, I am somebody who's just speaking. I'm not doing anything. For them, I'm trying for the idea of the advanced civilization, but right now I'm just speaking about it as if someone who, he saw a phoenix pass by in the sky, and then he realized that the potential of the mystical evokes the future's advancement. People don't realize atheists so casually just, smack the idea of God. Not realizing that, and I'll tell you this, even monotheists so easily smack the idea of multiple gods. But a person will see that when in, for example, monotheistic religions, it's said man is made in the image of God. So when every human being looked at their own image, their mind projected an archetype of God. Do you understand? That means the blacksmith worshipped Thor. Do you know? The warrior worshipped Apollo. Do you see what I'm saying? These were archetypes. These archetypes were strength. That means right now I'm saying an advanced civilization. And imagine back in the day, the person didn't have the idea of an advanced civilization, but they were like, Zeus, lend me your strength. And then they ran at the speed of lightning. In the movie Gladiator, the first scene of the movie, I believe it's the first scene of the movie, which is the best part of the movie. If somebody tells me like uh, like the heaven scene is incredible, but for me the best part of the movie of Gladiator is when he pretty much puts dirt on his hand and he's by this river and everything's peaceful, right? And suddenly, I don't remember exactly if he says something or not, but in that moment he just looks at the river and a bird lands on a branch in front of him, and then he smiles as if like, destiny is alongside him. Even Sun Tzu in The Art of War says the general that is aligned to the heavens actually wins the war, right? That means right now on this planet, there's so many human beings projecting ideas, and then these ideas, based on how important they are or where in the civilization, the journey of the civilization they are, they begin having a major factor. But honestly, technically, every person, let's say, I'm trying to just say, ideological systems, right, have a sort of shape-based destiny, but it's on some level the human being, just by the nature of the idea of the spirit. It's your decency, I'm telling you. Everything that ends up becoming eternalized in the future is pretty much how the general of every ideological system aligns with the heavens. That means to me, for example, the monotheistic religions, right? Technically, the monotheistic religions have been made relatable through individuals, like divine individuals, okay? Like through prophets, right? And what does that mean? That means it's as if, like, how do I say it? It's like, in the middle of the void, a creature that has reacted to this emptiness, like WTF, why so much emptiness? Why a rock hovering in the middle of nowhere and we're just like, what do we do here? Like, aside from the bizarreness of this massive emptiness and too dark to see scenario of the cosmos, right? It's like human beings are like, okay, even though the universe appears, dauntingly infinite, but what about me, right? What about the self that is breathing? Like, what about the that which is accessing sight through the eyes? They say the eyes are the window of the soul. It's like, how do we peek through our own eyes to see our own soul? And poetically, you just realize you're the one looking. The poet Rumi, he has this quote. He says, I have lived on the edge of insanity, wanting to know reasons, knocking on a door. The door opens. I have been knocking from the inside. It's pretty much the mystical archetype's destiny, where the individual goes searching for truth and realizes that in order to access truth, they have to be effortless so they can notice the effort of the divine in the moment. This is to me true shamanism. Anybody interested in shamanism, of course, I guess one definition of it would be a human being's relationship with plant or nature, right? But I would say the greater shamanic vision is that in some sense, if there was no self, what would move the moment? And really what it is that the ego wants to be a driver, wants to be in the driver's seat. And anytime we communicate as an individual and move our body, the ego is in the driver's seat, right? But imagine the ego disappeared and you realized you are in the passenger seat, and some unknown force, call it, the breath of life or whatnot, moves. That's the bizarre thing, right? That means underneath all spiritual idea, it's an unknown movement. If there was no movement, there would be nothing there. So technically, spirituality is what is moving that we cannot see. And it's not that we can't see it, it's just that to be able to see the one that's seeing, to look at the looker, is in some sense an acceptance of an unseen, of an inconceivable singularity. What I'm trying to say is that there is a level, there are states of mind which are humanized, these are language oriented, and the moment the state of mind goes beyond language, it becomes a dehumanized state of mind, and the dehumanized can either be beast or God. So let me explain this. Let me find the quote. There's this quote by, who's it by? Aristotle. He says, he who is unable to live in society, or who has no need because he's sufficient for himself, must be either a beast or a god. It's as if Aristotle is saying, if we don't care for humanity, if every member of the species doesn't accept that they have to be vulnerable to trust the potential of what can happen more than whatever has happened so far. It's as if to build an advanced civilization, I'll tell you this, there was a scene in the Japanese comic made into an anime called Shingeki no Kyojin. Okay? Now, in Shingeki no Kyojin, there's this story of like this human extinction scenario, and there's this general, and there's these new recruits that need to decide if they want to join this general's last stance of humanity. and so in the story, what happens is the general is so smart that he just, instead of telling people just focusing on emotion and honor, he goes to all the recruits in the show, and he says that all of you are gonna die in 2 years if you join this. Most of you, and in some sense, the honesty of the truth, then some people join the guy, join the survey corps, I think it was called. But anyways, if we just consider that there is an unknown self and a known self, all of life we've been told we're just our known self. We're just what we see, we are just what the senses are, and we are like a file cabinet of all the memories we've tunneled through. But to consider that humanity, let's say right now, and there was one person trying to build an advanced civilization, they would be like, okay, I would wonder about what can my known self do, and then what could my unknown self potentially do. And so you see, it's as if the moment is a space, and their free will is like the main governance of the space, the pilot of the space. And if this pilot can trust the world, it can also experience how the world pilots the individual rather than the individual piloting the world. When the world pilots the individual, that's divinity. That's literally the divine life. Now, but it's divinity, but if it's done through ignorance, if it's done unconsciously, that's when you become a beast, right? If you let outer forces govern you, right, then in some sense, it's like with an ego, you become a beast. If you don't have an ego, you don't become a beast, There's always been, the silent ones in civilization. There has been so many types of human beings on this planet. that it's like this giant stage. You know, it's a cosmic stage. You know, evil is a type of performance, good is a type of performance. Advancement is like this vision of like, why should chaos and evil loop when chaos and order can work together to build a way more advanced world for the chaos and order to exist in? You know, what's remarkable is that the psychology of the human being, at the end of its any sort of analysis, comes down to an emotional filter. That means it's as if like all the content I say in these talks, that has a value, but after I finish the talk, you know, to me it's not like just the content. I'm like, okay, how do I feel about the type of inner picture I painted for the audience? And what I have realized about feelings, that feelings arise when a person doesn't trust the moment. When you trust the moment, the feelings are, how can I tell you, it's like it's a bliss. Trust leads to bliss. Imagine modern relationships being designed as two individuals trying to enlighten each other. It's like the kings and queens of the future. Or how 8 billion human beings advance through their decency, simplicity, honesty. Like there's no reason for the species not to be honest. You know? People may think civilization, sure, you get ahead with dishonesty, but if you were an advanced being, you'd be like, how would like the challenge would increase. And you know, guys, I'll tell you something about this picture I noticed. The psychology behind this picture. Goku is usually a playful character that doesn't get angry quickly. So Batman and Superman must have tried to kill Goku and Vegeta first. Or Goku and Vegeta are possessed by some otherworldly power or something. An advanced era of human potential is another way of saying what would the most advanced life on Earth look like. Not us waiting for aliens to come down and we're like, yo, look at these shiny things being more advanced than us. Not us waiting for robots and AI feeling pity for human ignorance and then, you know, but in some sense, how advanced can we be? Somebody in the chat section says maybe they just had a friendly match. No, I'll tell you, this is an unfair fight. Because Vegeta and Goku can fly, Superman can fly, Batman can just like punch. He's like punching range. Or at most, like, you could get a gun. Like But I think Batman is actually dead here in this picture. Batman's dead. Like he's dying. Because like how strong could his suit be? You know, imagine Superman punches Goku and then Vegeta thinks like Batman is as strong, or Goku thinks Batman is as strong as Superman and punches Batman that hard and Batman's dying. Nah man, too much. My attention's flying everywhere. In my vision of civilization 2.0, my understanding is this. I've played chess before, and I realize in chess, every piece, based on where it is on the chessboard, has potentials of movement. The king is the most important thing to be defended. If right now every human being, just for a second, considered like right now Goku and Vegeta, they're in the show, they're part of a warrior species. Imagine the human species was a designer species. You know, we were not a warrior species, we were just civilized designers, right? That means the energy that would go to violence went towards design. And so it's as if being on Earth, being alive on Earth, regardless of how everybody looks or where they are or what kind of life they've lived, it's like the potential of 8 billion points of free will to design. And in order to design, one needs space. So the idea of an advanced civilization is like the greatness of the future, in some sense pulling out the misery, the potential of the past, you know, pulling off the box of the past from the head of the present. That's the power of the idea of an advanced civilization. Rabindranath Tagore, this Indian polymath, says, "I slept and dreamt that life was joy." That means he thought it was just to have fun here, right? He says, "I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service." So it's as if he had so much fun that he realized the fun is infinite, and then service of a temporary being in the conscious manifest realm has a value. Right? So he says, "I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was purpose. I acted and behold, life was service, and I acted and behold, service was joy." So it's as if the superior joy of the conscious entity of the human position is to be capable of acknowledging itself and considering there's a known and unknown dimension to that, being capable to consider itself collectively as one species. That means parents of the future generations just teach your children we're one species on a rock. Right? That means it's like teach humanism before culturalism. Right? And then your child will walk in the world seeing behind every person's eyes the greatness of humanity. You know, where else can it come from? You know, it's all left to the behavior of human beings. Really, the destiny of a civilization is like how 8 billion creatures feel. This evening I went for a walk by this lake that is near my place, and I was just looking at the water, and I was looking at just nature, and I just for a second thought, if I fast forward my mind into the future, would it be there? And I realized it's just based on what we value. That means as much as there's a responsibility to be a creative individual and find new ideas, to be an explorer of new ideas, there is an importance of, in some sense, maintaining ideas in the species, and also certain beings who, I shouldn't say destruction, but efficient letting go, right? That means we choose what ideas carry on, right? Like it could be a potential that in the future human beings become all robots because they want their lifespan to be immortal, or let's say they become cyborgs or something, and then when they reach that level, it's as if, imagine religion is around, and so we have like religious cyborgs, we have like cyborgs praying, right? And then let's say androids praying, right? Like the transfer of consciousness from a biological body into, let's say, a non-natural technological body. But what I'm trying to say is, like, right now, advancement, there is from within an advancement of communication. Pretty much behind your eyes, I have found the most efficient way to look at it is that you're a communication of this universal sector, and we are being the most advanced communication of the universal sector because no species can compete with what the human being is doing. We have to be fascinated by the game of nature that we're playing before any other game, whether technological or linguistic. Guys, the more I'm giving this talk, I'm looking at this picture and I'm like, I'm covering potential psychology, right? Like in the show, DBZ, like the Goku and Vegeta, they are defenders, they're not attackers. They don't attack first. So Superman and Batman must have attacked them first. And then probably Batman attacked them first. Probably Superman and Batman were just chilling, right? Batman was on top of a building, Superman was flying, Goku and Vegeta appear, and Batman just throws one of his what is that, like bat blades at like Vegeta, and then Vegeta goes crazy and, I don't know. Goku becomes a dumbass, I don't know. The show is hilarious, They make Goku the most powerful, like, character in the show, but in like real life, he's like a fool. It's really how we embrace our mind. The mind can be seen as the source of peace or the source of suffering, but it can also be seen as just an event that's happening. And the cool thing about free will is that every moment our perspective is writing our life like on an empty piece of paper. That's what like movement in the void is. Imagine in the future, children were raised in a new ethos of a world story, where it was as if the child would be say, why should we care for human beings? It's because they have embarked on the greatest project on Earth. That means in the advanced civilization is like a group of people on the planet decided to build something that is so advanced that everybody will eventually join to help build it. And then honor ensues. Our species doesn't have honor now. People have individual honor based on their cultural ethnocentrism, but we don't have collective honor, right? When I say collective honor, I'm not talking about patriotism and nationalism, even though in history nationalism was required for languages to become properly developed, right? That means it's as if nationalism has an important purpose, but there's greater phases to humanism, right? It's like at some point, just like we human beings don't judge each other based on, let's say, a color and shape, similarly, we're not going to judge, like, how would I tell you? You could see this fractalized in a macro sense, right? So we won't judge like how we're being human. It's another way I'm saying that it's like when a species accepts itself, then its skill and ability arise. You know, it's as if confidence is like an inner acceptance of a world you choose to walk in, a world you accept. You know, my greatest effort is to see it, like, to talk about the advanced civilization until people realize it's literally, you know, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen not because I'm saying so, because the human beings will get bored of inefficiency and only efficiency will be enough. So it's as if like we're these multidimensional beings, let's say mind-body relationship. And so for the body's vision is the advanced civilization, and the mind's vision is to constantly surpass itself. The mind wants to transcend, the body wants to continue. It's like the mind is a vertical dimension, and the body is a horizontal dimension, and consciousness is in between two dimensions. Something I would recommend for the listeners, this is pretty much, think of it as one of those exercises Mr. Within is just suggesting to people. Wherever you are, go buy a stack of printer paper and find your favorite pen, or like a new pen or something, right? You know, get a new pen and get a stack of printer paper, put the pen on the stack of printer paper, and put the stack of printer paper on a table where you pass by often, and only write on that piece of paper when you are when an idea has come to you, when you are seeing something in your inner realms, that if you don't write it, your attention will walk in the future, and the idea will in some sense, your attention will move from the idea. So it's as if I'm trying, with this exercise, people will notice their inner realms and they will learn to write it. And writing is incredible, because if a person honestly writes like how their mind, how their inner voice is actually happening, then when they read their own writing, they see the geometry of what ideas the mind communicated first. Like, there's a way of listening to my talk where a person's like, okay, what does this mean? What does that mean? How does this connect to that thing? Or another way of listening to these Mr. Within lectures is to like have no opinion and just close your eyes and just wonder about the images that are evoked sequentially. Right? That's the thing about speech. Speech is a sort of sequential projection, rhythmic sequential projection. And true skill arises from a challenge that is beyond you. That's what I've learned. Anybody who wants to attain anything, it's as if, just like how Einstein said, no problem can be solved from the same state of consciousness that created it. It's like no new dimension can be accessed. If a person is in a previous state, for example, for me, in my inner realms, it's as if it's been a while now, but I quickly caught on to how I know I'm being an object, and how I know I'm being my ego and subject. In the moment, this subjective sense of self is actually, I am knowing them in space and awareness. I would say in these, let's say, 10 years of giving these talks, the result has been that I have become space I've become like my whole moment, rather than just my body, how my body is, and how subjects come and go. It's as if you have to be free, and when you are free, you can use something properly. So my freedom was this recognition that the unknown presence of this witnessing force that knows that is looking through my eyes. It's like the moment I became content with how it's unknown, everything I look at is I can see new dimensions to. The moment you just realize that the simplicity of how the unknown is being unknown, your imagination opens up. Because you will look at things and realize the initial meaning that arises from looking at something, that's like the past tapping your shoulder, and then it's as if that becomes one parallel universe of observance. Really what analysis is like traveling through multiple parallel universes that are like all the radius of the circle connected to the central point. It's the great challenge of our species. It's the next evolutionary leap. That means if there was a creature that was like psychologically, the animals like upper body and lower body were in sync. So imagine we were a four-limbed creature, right? And then suddenly this four-limbed creature not only straightened its back, but its legs began moving and its hands began behaving different than how they were synchronized. So when we stood up, also the nose of the creature was like, yo, I'm not smelling dirt anymore. That could also have led to psychological transformation. The idea is that in the past, there were people who attempted the great. In the present, we should attempt the great, and in the future, our greatness will be the lift-off platform for the greatness of the future generations. That means this is truly how, like, an advanced civilization activates in the inner realms when the person wonders about what their greatest self and both individual and collective deserves. Health, peace, advancement. What else does humanity need to attain greatness? Sometimes I look at, for example, the idea, this political idea of a dictator, this concept of a dictator. And I think about, the dictators in history being foolish in the sense of not realizing that if they make an environment incredible, human beings have a greater chance of behaving incredibly. The most incredible environment is an environment that is free to allow the individual to be an individual in it, right? So my vision is like, okay, why aren't dictators, like all over the planet or whatever, not realizing that in some sense, if they give freedom of mind, the greatness of every nation increases. That means freedom and trust are so necessary for genius ideas to step out of the shadows. That means it's like the potential greatness of the species is hiding. And when the attention of enough human beings is on it, then suddenly a spirit animates to the vision of the future. What else can I say? It's like me giving these talks about the advanced civilization. It's like the early caveman trying to spark fire somehow. It's as if the future generations are going to be how grand, the light of, this fire of advancement towards the future. And fire is not, I'm talking about it in an elemental sense, not in a cultural sense. To be here now, to be in the here and now, to realize the here and now. It's as if when a person comes to let's say this new age view of the here and now, it's as if you didn't get to see the future. There will be leaders of the hearts of mankind, and there will be leaders of the minds of mankind, and leaders of the body. As long as there is a value system and there's a spectrum of different potentials to decide, it's as if people are defined based on where their attention goes, not where it is. It's as if, like they say, what does being a human being feel like? And imagine it's like being the most advanced intelligence that is visible. It's like we are like the aliens to like the lesser species. We're so advanced. We are like human species is like Goku and Vegeta, and the lesser species are like Superman and Batman. But technically, this pictures a war between Japan and America. if I wanted to see a political dimension to this. Oh man, but I could totally see like, Superman being like, "All right, guys, stop this shit." It's like Batman is dying, and Vegeta and Goku are like, "Okay, let's not, they're just intimidating them." The only thing we need here is like the Hulk and Iron Man to join. Is the journey of human life inefficient? Are we just a creature that in some sense should have just been, as simple as the birds and the squirrels, but we just, our bigger dreams were like our eyes from another dimension? The advanced humanity is the question mark of question marks. It's pretty much how far the story of mankind will go and how humanized, biologically humanized, and how, let's say, dehumanized it becomes. An advanced humanity can be defined as an advanced civilization that has fully countered inner and outer extinction. That's it. That could be said to be a definition of an advanced civilization. It's like the future is where advancement lives. Guys, right now I'm like reading like ancient mystical quotes. Imagine like 1,000 years or 2,000 years from now, they're gonna see like these like Japanese and like American comic books and like what the characters said, and they're gonna think those are like holy books. Pretty much, we need 8 billion human beings to advance their own communication by studying how their own mind is happening and what their nature is. Do you know? And once there is inner freedom, it becomes easy to look for it in the outer ones. But if you don't have inner freedom, you could look for truth as much as you want. It's like, even if somebody gives you a scroll of truth or like some sort of truth in a gift box, it's like the inner realms is the capacity of human access to the information it's receiving, right? So it's as if like how you're, like right now, I am sitting on a chair, but behind my eyes, I'm also sitting in a worldview as attention. That means behind my eyes, I find myself like it's like I'm seeing the content of my biological eyes simultaneously overlaid on that imagination. Like really, if I was to tell the listeners, I feel my thoughts are like I shouldn't say thoughts, but my inner realms, the way I'm perceiving it, it's happening in front of me. It's like this strange thing of like memories are in the brain, but imagination is like outside of, like imagine from your forehead like an arm's, like 2 arms length away. Like sometimes when I'm giving these talks, that's where I'm noticing where the inner realms is. It's like the thoughts have their own distance from the person considering them. But everybody's different, of course. Efficient freedom. If the concept of efficiency, advancement, and benevolence or benevolence, advancement, efficiency, like when the species can trust itself, honor itself, and care for its potential. The advanced have already arrived. the seed of an advanced humanity has been planted. It's like now we're concerned about it sprouting. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. And you know what's crazy? If we break the fourth wall of this image, we are technically on Batman and Superman's side. You know? That means it's another way of saying Batman and there's like 5 people in this picture and we're like one position of it. That means the perspective of this picture could be from a third person in front of like Goku and Vegeta. But anyways, guys, thanks for listening. Much blessings and loves. And I would say an advanced era of human potential has begun. Namaste.